Hi everybody, as Steve said, my name's Sarah Purdie and I'm Head of Internal Communications for Brand at Clarks Shoes. So I'm just here to talk to you today about a little film that we made a pretty big impact in our organisation. I'll tell you a little bit how we made it, why we made it, and some of those lessons that we learned along the way, so that hopefully you can kind of take home some thoughts and learnings with you. Maybe you've talked about video in your channel discussion. Why use it? So there's a statistic up there that says that 93% of internal comms professionals think it's really important. So let's assume that pretty much everybody in this room feels that way at some level or another. But I guess more importantly, 54% it says up there of our employees are expecting to see it in the workplace. Now that statistic was done in 2011, so I'm going to take a bit of a punt here that I think that's getting increasingly higher, that statistic. Video is accessible everywhere externally. We've all got our phones. We're all accessing video content for news, for entertainment, for everything, all the time, anywhere. And I think that is definitely going to be overspilling into the internal organisation. People expect to see it now more and more. And I think video, when it's done right internally, can be probably one of the best tools we've got if we want to make an emotional connection with our audience. We talked a little bit earlier about how leadership's absolutely probably one of the best ways to communicate with our people, but what I'm talking about here is not that kind of leadership, head and shoulders, piece to camera. I think absolutely that has its place. We need our leaders to be visible, we need them to be communicators. But unless they are brilliant communicators, unless they are authentic, unless they are, the Barack Obamas of this world, it's really hard to make that emotional connection. And it's often quite difficult to get those kind of complex messages across. So what I want to talk about is how we tell a story through video in quite a short space of time. It's also a pretty efficient way to get to people. We're all globally connected, and increasingly our employees are having access to technology at any point, at any time. And you can distribute it in many ways. So you can put it on your intranet, you can present it in a meeting, you can present it at a conference, you can show it at a team meeting. So there's many, many ways in which that you can use video as a tool. So in terms of channel choice, I think depending on your objective, why you want to use it, I think it's one of the best ways to engage an audience. But before I talk to you a little bit more about the film we made, I thought it might be useful to give you a little bit of information about Clarks. Now, maybe you know about Clarks, maybe you were dragged down to a store as a kid to get your feet measured in one of those kind of devices. Maybe you're doing the same with your kids now. If you have, hopefully you see it's come on a bit since then. But Clarks is 190 years old this year. It's something we're celebrating a little bit internally. Started in 1825 when two brothers, Cyrus and James Clarks, had a sheepskin tannery. And James nicked a bit of an offcut and he made a slipper. That was his eureka moment. He called it the Brown Petersburg. Don't know why. Nothing to do with St. Petersburg, I don't think. But within a year, they were selling 1,000 pairs of these shoes every month, and they attended the great exhibition that Prince Albert put on in 1851 and received awards from the Queen and the Prince at that point as well. So fast forward to today, we're still based in the sleepy village of Street in Somerset, in the shadow of Glastonbury Tor, which is a lovely place to be. And nearly 200 years on, we're known for innovation and being masters of shoemaking. Some of you might know Clarks if you're a cool person, which isn't me, as the makers of the desert boot. The very first original desert boot, which was created in 1949. Nathan Clark, one of the brothers, one of the family, created that from his trip in Cairo. And now it has absolute cult-like status in Jamaica, apparently. They counterfeit the goods. There's all sorts of people getting hauled to jail. You've made it when someone's counterfeiting your goods in Jamaica, so yay. So today, yes, so we've got over 15,000 employees. We're present in over 75 countries around the world, and I think, you kind of, in this country, think it's a bit more of a UK-based company, and actually 11,000 of those employees are still based in the UK, mostly in our retail stores. We're a 1.5 billion turnover business. We operate in all four regions around the world. And in 2012, we had a restructure where we brought those regions together much more closely. They operated as very disparate businesses. So we had a massive reorganisation. We have group functions now sit in the centre in Street. to support those functions. And primarily the reason was for that was we have a big kind of 5 to 10 year plan to become a global brand. So that's kind of the background to Clarks. If anybody wants to know the story about Clarks, there's a fantastic digital piece online called clarksunboxed.com. I'd encourage you to look at it. It's a real immersive digital experience. It's not a dusty history lesson, it's really, really fun. So, moving on, what about internal communications at Clarks? We've gone through a bit of a step change recently. When I joined 2 years ago, email was pretty much the only global distribution channel we had. Internal comms was managed in pockets around the organisation. Quite often it would be somebody who would have it tagged onto their role, an HR person or a PA. So there were lots of various newsletters flying around the business. So as we became more global, we did an employee survey, and that told us very loud and clear that communications needed to get better across the globe. So now we have a global team that sits in the centre, and we have a few more experienced communications professionals in the business. So we have a bit more of a strategic and coordinated approach to the way we communicate. We've implemented a global intranet. When I joined, I said, "Where's the intranet?" Well, there it is. No, that's file folders. So that was it. So now we have an intranet. We have Yammer, which is getting a real groundswell of users, particularly in our retail stores in the UK. They are really, really into Yammer, which is fantastic. But we're still a fairly immature function. We're still growing, but we've seen some great improvement over the last couple of years. And in the last survey we did at the end of last year, people told us that communications across Clarks well, and that rose 8 percentage points, which was one of the biggest rises in all the engagement levers across the business. So that gives you some context of the business that I work in and internal communications at Clarks. So let me tell you a little bit about the film that we made. So what was the communication need? So I said earlier that we're building a global brand. It's a pretty ambitious goal. I'm not just talking about being present everywhere. This is about the brand experience being differentiated, enhanced, and consistent everywhere you go. Whatever store you walk into, whatever experience you have online, whatever product you buy, it's absolutely a Clarks experience that's enhanced. And obviously when you're building your brand, a key enabler of that is your people. We need our people to absolutely deliver it for us. All brands are built from within. So it's important because we needed everybody to work in a coordinated fashion. So as part of the wider programme that I was managing to educate, inform and engage people across the business about that particular story, about the projects that were being run, there were lots of complex messages, but they were all everywhere. So we wanted to bring it together to tell one cohesive story that would kind of get everybody engaged and on the bus with us as we step off on this journey. When I joined a couple of years ago, I sent out a survey to a sample of people across the business to understand what they thought about the brand, what they understood about our ambitions to become a global brand, what does that mean to you, and then to kind of understand what the communications they'd had so far and what they wanted to have in the future. And from a communications perspective, over 60% said they really needed to know more about what it means to become a global brand. So you can see the quotes up there. This was from a manager, one of the senior managers in the retail business. I want to articulate what it means to be a global brand. So he was senior, he understood it, but he couldn't articulate it very well. And then the second quote, whilst I think I understand the future aspirations, I don't know how we're going to get there and what we need to do differently. So there's an absolute communications need there. So what were the objectives? So I wanted to tell a story that was engaging, it was memorable, and it wanted to be told quickly so people could get it quite quickly. My aim was 3 minutes. You'll see later I didn't quite make it. So yeah, it's all about storytelling. I wanted to make it inspirational, really build a sense of pride in the brand and the journey that we're on, and capture the kind of globalness of the brand. Of, certainly if you're, work in a store in, in Cornwall somewhere, to know that actually you've got colleagues in Shanghai, Beijing, Boston, all working in stores, and actually we're one big team working towards this one goal. So it's really important to make that emotional connection. Convey teamwork, so everybody in the business has a part to play in the brand success. Yes, the decision was made at the boardroom, but actually it's down to our people to make it happen. It's also important to connect to our global workforce. So we have people offline pretty much in our retail stores. They don't have access to our intranet yet, although they do have Yammer on their phones. We have people in offices, we have people in distribution centres. So there's various different people that we needed to reach. And we also have people speaking different languages, so we needed to try and cover that off as well. And then stimulate conversations, and for me this was the most important objective of all. It's a big project, it's a big programme, so there's lots of things happening. So what we wanted to do was be able to get people on the bus with us, get people engaged, so that stimulates that conversation. You know, I get it now, I'm part of something fantastic. Okay, what does that mean for me? Let's talk about that in our teams, in our countries, in our stores. So yeah, for me that was the most important one. And then also boring, have to keep it within budget. And I had a budget of £12,000 for this. So, the solution, quite like that, I hope you can read it. It says, a film made by Clark's people for Clark's people. My original idea was to make an infographic, so that might be fun. Stick it on every room in every part of the business. And then I thought, okay, what about a leader video? But again, making that memorable and engaging, I thought we might struggle with. And I said earlier about how it can kind of build that emotional connection, so that's kind of where we got to with it. Another reason I chose video is quite simply because we could. For the first time we had an intranet that we could get it out on, and that was accessible to a big part of our population. Although our retail stores didn't have it, they all have televisions with a DVD player because that's how they push out their training videos. So that was an easy way in there for those guys. And we had a relatively low budget. And that's what kind of brought about the teamwork message, really. We thought, well, how do we get resource and people and things to be in it for free? Well, actually, let's use our own people. They're free. Well, if you give them a pair of shoes for free, they're free. You'd be amazed how many people from Clark's love to have free Clark shoes. So what we wanted to do was use our people in the film. The whole kind of big idea, the concept, was to use our people to literally build stuff. We film them building stuff with props that represent different parts of the brand. So they had a part to play in the film and they had a part to play in building the brand. So it's all a bit literal and metaphorical. So that was the idea behind it. And how we made it. So everything pretty much was done in-house. I'm really fortunate to work in a team that has an in-house graphic design studio who are brilliant. So the idea, the storyboarding, the script writing, everything, the prop building was done in-house. We used a company called Viewpoint Photography in Bath to actually do the actual filming and the editing for us, and that's where the majority of the cost was. But yeah, it was a great opportunity to use our internal resource, and especially because they really understand our brand. Our head of creative has been with Clark's for 26 years. He's still only 40-something, so you know he's been there all his life, and he absolutely gets the culture, he gets the brand, and he's really passionate about it. And I think that comes through in the end result. We've got a brilliant copywriter. I wrote a script, which he sort of looked at, laughed, walked away, and came back with this amazing film script. I did do my best, but you know, we talked earlier about how writing is actually really, really difficult. So even as kind of general internal communicators, it's a tough thing to do. So having a specialist in-house was really, really fantastic. And then that script we then turned into Spanish, French, Chinese, and German for the translation as well. I kept the stakeholders as part of this project really, really small. Basically, it was just the director of marketing. I wanted to keep it tight because I wanted to keep hold of that creativity. Now, Clark's is a really collaborative business, which is great, but it can slow things down. And so I kind of made that purposeful decision to keep that stakeholder group small. It did come back to bite me a little bit later, so I'll mention that a little bit later on. But yeah, so the attention to detail was absolutely stunning. On the left, we had a shoot Bible, which every single prop was placed Every instruction was very detailed. It's something that I'd never experienced before. It was just the pre-work that goes into creating a film was astonishing. As I said, everybody who appeared in the film got a free pair of Clarks shoes. I put out a casting call. We got people to volunteer to actually be in it, to spend a day out of the business to actually be in the film, and also people internationally to lend their voices to the film as well, to read the script. And then this little bit shows a little bit more of actually kind of just the couple of days before we had a cherry picker that the cameraman was on. The set that we built was painted in the exact shade of green. That's one of the Clarks greens. You know, they went to Dulux and did that mixing thing. So it's exactly the right colour. So all the props there ready to go. So the shoot itself took 2 days. We then did some voiceover recording another 2 days, and then quite a few weeks of editing and laying down music and the voiceovers after that. I'm going to shut up and let you see it. So hopefully you'll enjoy it.
The year was 1825. In the heart of the English countryside, in the shadow of Glastonbury Tor, a hill as old as time itself, brothers Cyrus and James made the first pair of Clarks shoes.
And we've been following in their footsteps ever since.
And as we look forward to celebrating our 200th anniversary, we're as passionate as ever. Not just about making shoes, but about designing and selling them too.
We're known for it, by lots of people, in lots of places. But we want more people to know about us. Men, women, and children in all 4 corners of the globe.
We want them all to know what makes the Clarks brand special.
In our stores and offices, in our franchises and distribution centres, every one of us has a part to play in the brand's success.
That's all 15,000 of us, helping to build a bigger, better, and more profitable global brand.
A brand people love, just like they love our shoes.
Of course, our success also depends on our consumers. Consumers rule.
That's why we talked to over 20,000 of them, everywhere from the Americas and Europe to Asia.
We've been getting inside their heads as well as their hearts.
Finding out all we can about their needs, the way they live their lives,
where they shop, how they shop, their attitudes to shoes, and what drives their choices.
And we'll keep talking to them, listening, learning, and being inspired.
So we can anticipate what they want, season after season, moving forward by holding on to our loyal consumers, as well as attracting new ones.
To make sure our consumers keep coming back for more, we have to be the best.
The best for quality, design, innovation and technology.
The best for style with comfort.
The best in store, the best online, the best everywhere and in every way.
And we need to make sure consumers know what we stand for. Effortless, British style. It's what we want to be famous for, wherever and whenever people see the Clarks name.
So, from the collections we create to their journey around the world,
let's work together to make sure we're reaching the right consumers with the right message and the right shoes in the right place at the right time.
And how will we know when we've got everything right?
We'll know when the Clarks name is instantly recognisable for what makes us special. We'll know when consumers looking for style with comfort come to us first. That's when we'll know we've built a truly global brand.
Thank you. It still makes me quite emotional, actually, when I watch it, which is great. So, thank you for the applause, glad you liked it. Hope you found it a little bit surprising at the end. Anybody expecting that bit with the globe? No. So, how did we get it out there? My original intention was for it to be a bit of a standalone piece with other communications to follow over time. It would have managers' briefing notes to support conversations with teams afterwards as well. But the timing meant that actually we were able to use it as part of our broader strategy communications for that year, talking about our broader 5-year plan. And as part of that launch to kick off, there was a very high-profile leadership event. So the top 100 leaders of the business came together. It was a very last-minute thing, but I kind of seized that as an opportunity to launch the film, get those guys to buy into it, and get those guys to make sure the film and their managers then showed the film and talked about it with their teams afterwards. So they had a very clear call to action. And so this slide is just showing you some of the other communications materials as part of that suite of comms materials for the strategy. So we did a visual thinking map. And number 1 on there, I don't know if you can see it, it says build a global brand. So when they're talking through that bit, then there's the time to show the video and have a conversation about that piece. And there were managers' briefing notes to support that as well. And it's a tactic that we're using, a strategy we're using more and more as the years have gone by. That was 2 years ago now, I think, so we're evolving that on a yearly basis. So that was the first way we did it. So to hit our retail stores in the UK, so as I said, that's a massive population for us, 11,000 of them, and they've all got DVD players. We actually created a DVD. So beautifully branded, inside it had all the information they needed, along with the DVD. There was another event that we were able to launch that too. The UK retail leadership have a kind of a seasonal kick-off conference every year. So we showed the film there as well. And then we distributed the DVDs out to all 550 stores in the UK. And then we put it on our intranet as well for people to access and self-serve. I deliberately did it a little bit afterwards so that it wouldn't just give the managers the opportunity to go, oh, by the way, here's a video for you to go and see. We wanted them to show it to them within their team meetings, within their sessions, to have those conversations. But it still sits on our intranet now, and it's still getting people looking at it, new starters, that kind of thing. So what was the outcome? Pretty impressive figures. I'm a bit embarrassed, actually. Shall I put them up or not? Because they're pretty good. So to evaluate the film, we sent out a survey to around 60% of the population, really just trying to establish if we actually met our objectives through this particular communications tool. Around 10% of the population responded, and these were the kind of the numbers that we got back. So 80% said they had a great conversation afterwards about the part that they play, which really pleased me. My biggest fear was that it would just get shown and that would be it. But the majority of people had that conversation afterwards. 92% said they better understood how and why we were building a global brand, which is great. Now, those who did have a team conversation, 100% said they agreed why we're building a global brand, but 79% of those that didn't have that conversation said that they understood why, so it's really important. 80% of people think that all new employees should see it as part of induction, so that is now happening. It's part as people come in, it's part of the process they go through. 82% said that they know now how to contribute to building a global brand, which I think is fantastic. But the real interesting stat around that is of those people who didn't have the team conversation, only 29% of them said they knew how to contribute. So the video could not be all things to all people. It needed to have that conversation afterwards for them to really kind of get the what's in it for me piece. 92% said it made them feel proud. And then 90% said they think films like this are a great way to communicate strategy generally. So I think it's something that we all have to do. So it's certainly worth kind of creating a story around it that's very engaging. And us as a business, we're using video a little bit more and more. Admittedly, a lot of it is the leadership video piece. But these statistics have helped me sell in the importance of storytelling and really engaging our people in our strategy to the leadership of the business. Some of the verbatim comments, often I find the real richness is in there. This was from a leader. It's a motivational tool to help me communicate with my team. It makes me feel part of something big. We're all working to a future together. It was emotionally moving, beautifully created. Can't take any credit for that. That's all our creative people. I love the focus from people from around the company, all of the regions speaking to the different goals. So I really love that way we kind of split the different people up talking through the narrative. I think that was great. We didn't think it would work, actually, that piece, but it did. It all really gelled together nicely. Helped me understand why it's so important. Not everybody agreed. That would be silly. But it's true, 3 minutes doesn't cut it for something this big. You need other things, you need other tools, you need to push it through different channels. So it's the mix of things that's important. It was interesting, but I didn't really take away a message. Whatever. Maybe he saw the Spanish version and he was English, I don't know. But to be fair, we weren't shown it as part of the broader suite of materials. You know, they found it afterwards, so you know that's fine. We let him off. So, what did I learn? Well, I learned that video, actually, if it's done well, it's creative, it's different, can really, really engage and inspire people. And it can be very, very powerful. I think face-to-face conversation and face-to-face communications in the kind of league of comms league is still up there, it's still top. But you know, unless you've got a brilliant communicator as a manager or a leader, then or a facilitator of conversation, then I think video sort of is a close second. Keep the core team small and stakeholders small, but be prepared to sell it in later. I said before that I had the leadership conference where I was able to launch the video. At that point, I needed to engage other senior stakeholders who had not engaged previously in the process. So I go in with my film, let's show this film. And I had two particularly very, very challenging meetings with two very senior leaders of the business. And I'm not embarrassed to say I walked out of one of those rooms in tears. They ripped it to pieces. And I think that's to do with not being involved at the right time. I don't think it's because they didn't like it, it's just they weren't involved in the process. So keep your stakeholders small, but that's just to watch out. Think about who you've got in your business and who actually does need to be brought in earlier in the process. And then invest in ensuring your managers are ready, willing and able to have those conversations. You know, where it was done well, people really got it, but where it wasn't done well or not at all, then it didn't work so well. But that's a whole new challenge, which is another presentation from somebody really, I suspect. So, but yeah, so that's it really. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Anybody got any questions?